day 24 of my tutorial series. First of all, I want to do some housekeeping. I want to apologise for the lack of any tutorials being made. The reason being I haven't is because I've been working out my substance file in Unreal Engine 4. For some reason the process I've been using hasn't been working. I'll show you what I mean later on in this tutorial. This tutorial will be wrapping up on the actual pepper salt asset. So next time we'll be working on the actual food mixer, like I promised. So if you join me part way of my tutorial series, you can follow me on www.day24.com. Halfway down, I said it's every tutorial, halfway down my first 4 videos is located here, and you can simply go to my tutorials page, and my other tutorials is located on this page. I have now 3 pages with all my tutorials in them. This is my page 3, my most recent one. So if you ever want your asset to be critiqued or require advice, or even if your studio require a 3D artist, please contact me on a.booth3d@outlook.com, or alternatively follow me on Twitter @andbooth3d. So now we've done the housekeeping, we'll now start our tutorial. As I said earlier on, this tutorial is to wrap up this salt pepper asset. We'll be going back into Substance Designer, working out how to switch materials out and stuff like that. But first of all, I want to show you the process I've been using for this. Now, for this past couple of days, a lot has changed. I've been finding problems in a way. I even posted on forums on Unreal. So if you have any advice to improve this, to fix my problem, you can contact me. When I press play, everything's the same, except when I press B, a new widget come up, as you saw, and a reported error come up. When you show this, it's because there's an infinite loop here. That's between this here, what's happening here, because I'm calling a dispatcher event, and also on here. Is it this one? It's one of the two. Let's play it again, see what I get. Slider. Yeah, this area here. So it's basically, keep calling, what's happening is because I keep calling out events, the same event repeatedly over and over, and creating an infinite loop. So if you have any advice on how to fix it, please contact me. I would love to hear your critique, and no one's perfect. Every artist cannot know everything, so I'm always looking to improve my work and improve my work basically. So what's changed? I added a new HUD, a new UNG. I call it a bar. I got a dirt layer, text, just like I did in the actual HUD. I got a text box, horizontal box with a text box with a dirt level, and then a slider. Now this slider, the value is bind, just like you did on the HUD, but the actual value is binded, which is this here. Basically what I've done in the function, I got the actual slider, I got the value and I'm outputting it. So then when you actually get into the event graph, I'm basically doing the same again here. So to save this, I can just pull this out and get the value. So on click on a mouse, I delay it, then I call out the dispatcher. And the actual event is happening here in the level node, in the actual levels. To locate your level map, click the asset and then find find in level blueprint. So now I got to once I can find all my nodes. Where are you? Search dirt level. Let's just do that. Here, found it. Basically, once you can't find, if you zoomed out and can't locate your blueprints, you can always type in one of the variables in the search result, just as I did, and locate it that way. Now, what I was hoping is using the event dispatcher, binding it to here, so when the slider is clicked and pressed off, it will launch these events. Or I could do it manually, manually, and do it that way, but it didn't work. So if I go through it, this is when you press the keypads. When I was struggling to actually execute any events. Reason being that was because when you actually go into class defaults, the auto receiver was on disabled. It should be on player 0. So now things like that will work more better. Always look on that, because if it's on disabled, sometimes it does not fire any events, any of your code. So you got to tell it you're player 0. So when I was struggling, I actually went into the settings, project settings. I went into console. Is it console? No. All these always confuse me because there's so many menus, you don't know where things are. Here we are. Mapping. Input mapping. And when I done that mapping, I went into where is it? I basically inputted more actions here. For dirt, I press page up. For clean, press page down, and it'll activate these events. Basically, what you do, you can do it different ways. You can get a reference on your graph. You add a new variable, substance graph. You call it a substance graph instance. So substance graph instance and reference. And you can have that as a reference, but I like to do it this way. You create a graph instance. So you just right click, search for graph, create graph instance. That will ask for your substance factory. So you go into, if I put this to my center screen, you click your factory, which is located here. in your actual substance file. And then you set it. So when you drag off this wire, you say set. When you type in set substance graph, so you're basically setting this reference to this. Then what you do, you get the input. Wait a minute. This is an old one. Yeah, thought so. Let me change things around here, because this is the wrong way around to do it. You go into a sequence. And you start the sequence from here, like so. The file that I have been using for some reason isn't here, so it is only part way. And you just reconnect it here. Don't worry, I'll be going through just a second. This has been thrown out completely because for some reason it didn't save the work I did last time, I did yesterday. So I do apologise. This only takes a couple of seconds, just reordering it. The order that you do these nodes does matter. There. Don't need to worry about this one, changing this one because it's the same thing, but I'll go through. Basically go through the sequence. So saying on the first sequence, I'm done the calculations, so I get a variable, new variable of the dirt layer, the default one, which for me is 0.4. Then you add or take away the you add the 0.2 and you add it together, and you set that, and that's your new, that's the new dirt layer. So every time you press this button, you're adding 0.2, and then what you do, you make an array. The reason you're making an array is because this set input float, the only way you can alter input values in the substance graphs by set input float. This one can be quite tricky to access. So set input input float, yeah. So set input float. As you can see, straight off the back, nothing comes up. That's because the context sensitivity is activated. This is Unreal being too smart. Unreal can be smart and can take away search results depending on your request. So what's necessary, sometimes it can be too smart and take things out that don't need to be taken out. So to access this, you just click this button and it appears. This is what you get. So what you do, you put the execute pin in, and then you get your reference. That's the set. Here's a little tip for you when you're dealing with variables. When you press Alt and drag the variable onto the graph, it sets it. When you Shift and click and drag, it asks you to do it. If you want get or set. When you Command and click and drag, it gets reference. So you get a reference, you get the reference to the target, which is the graph, and it only accept input values of an array. An array is a collection of variables, sorry. Now the reason it only accepts arrays is because certain inputs require an array. Like when you're dealing with color, let me see if I can get color. No, that's the one. Color. Split screen. As you can see, you have the RGB value. They come in as all variables. But if this was a single variable, it won't alter the color, because when you do, as you know, you can change the color in your substance graph. When you're doing that, it doesn't change much because it's a variable. It all comes in a single float. So for this to accept it, you have to make an array and then add more pins to input so it can alter them. So it'll be RGB alpha. That's how it works. That's why it's always make an array. You had to make an array of a single value. I know it sounds bizarre, but it makes sense because although we only altering one value, it still requires an array. Now, as an identifier, this is basically telling the name of the actual input field. When you go into the instance graph, this is what you get. If you remember rightly, these names here, what you see in the input is the actual labels, but when you hover over, it's the actual identifier. So we gave the identifier as salt roughness, and then labeled it salt roughness control. Dirt level is salt dirt level. So with this, you can hard code it like this: salt dirt level. Just type in, and it'll still affect it. Or you can do something else. There's another process you can do. You can get input names, if I could spell. Get input names. If I just move these across so it becomes more readable. What you can do, you can use the reference to the graph here, and it's coming out as an array. It's because it's arraying all of these name values. All these names are now values. So each one, because they are all name values, they're all coming out as an array value, but the identifier is not an array, and it cannot be inputted. So what you do, you get a getter. You type in get. So now you're now getting, if I just make this more tidy, I'm a bit fussy when it comes to tidiness of a graph, like that. So basically what you're now doing, you're now getting a single value name value specified by integer name, by integer value. You can, this is like an index. It's always best to do it. I suppose there's no other way of doing it. You can do the last index. Basically, you're saying there's one here, the last index. And I think that's what it means, or it could mean the last one that was used. But you're basically getting the name value, and then you hard code which selection you want. So for us it's 2, and then you plug that in. So now you're getting the name value of the identifier. You're probably thinking, why is it 2? When you actually go in the instance graph, it's third one down. That's because in C++ code, in coding language, values don't start at 1. Integer values don't start at 1, it starts at 0. So random seed is 0, salt roughness control is 1, dirt level is 2. And that's basically what it is. And then from there you get a sync rendering. You just come off here and you type in sync rendering. You have 2. Async rendering and sync rendering. The difference is sync rendering do it straight away, where async rendering queues up. So it depends what you want. So you just get a sync rendering. You get the reference to the graph, and you type and you alters it, and it renders it out. It renders out this input value. What I did in my second sequence was I was trying to be quite clever. I was getting the substance load in progress and print it to screen. For some reason it only prints out 1, it doesn't go down, probably because it's not on every tick. If I did it on every tick, it would work. Another thing to pay attention is when you actually go in your settings, go to project settings, scroll down to substance plugin. This drop down matters. You have platform default, baked, load sync and cache, load sync async, and onload async and cache. Every one of them would work in real time except baked. Baked means you baked out the graph and it cannot be changed in runtime, in game mode. So I always use load, sync and cache, so it stores the information and it syncs the rendering, and it does not do it. It does not progress the game until it's loaded, if that makes sense. That one's down to personal preference, so keep an eye on that one. Make sure you save. I always forget to. Now what I did with the bar widget, I got the B value, so when every time I press B, I branch off. I created a variable, a Boolean value that is true. I made it the condition, so when it's true, basically what I'm saying, if it's hidden, I create a bar, I create a widget with the bar value, class value, add it to viewport, and then set it as false. So then when I press B again, is hidden would be false. So if it's false, I remove from parent, and then I set it to be true. So in other words, it would, by pressing B, it adds it to the viewport, and then pressing B again will delete it. Basically, it's easy done. And when I end play, I reset the input values. I can copy this lot out, once again taking out all this math, and just have the default dirt level as the make array, a default value. I can do it that way, so it will always sync a default value or hard code the default value of 0.4, and it will automatically input that. So now we've done that, I'm now going to show you how to process the substance designer to change this aphrodite salt to wrap things up. It comes back to this is the trouble when you're working over Unreal Engine 4, because they're not all universal. Each one, the navigation is different, so you get confused and you can't remember which one's which. So you just have to bear in mind what is actually the navigation system for each one. So here we have a blend node here, blending together the typography blend. This is what needs to be switched. To do that, you can actually search for switch, if I can spell. Switch. You have material switch, multi-material switch, material switch, switch, multi-grayscale switch, and this is the one we're working on. This is a switch. Basically, you've taken this input and you can switch it with another, with a second value, like so. And you can input selection. It goes up to 20 and the selection goes up to 20, but we're only having it 2. When you go for a selection, you could expose it like so, and then like you do normally, or you can use this switch. No, that's not the one. Switch grayscale. Yeah. This is the one that's more appropriate to us. This one does multi, so it uses the integer number. So this is how it works. You have, for this one, you have two pins, and the output is 1. So you replace all this typography blend nodes wires back down to here, like so. There you go. So when it's true, it'll be pepper. When it's false, it'll be a single one, a different one. This is where you make changes. So now all we need to do we're not changing my name, so what we do, you copy and paste that, like so, and copy this node, put that in input 1, put this in input 2, and all we need to do is then copy all this, copy, paste, first of all onto make room for it. All we need to do is make room for it. Copy and paste all of this. And then put this in the top selection. Oh no, that's the wrong one. See, be careful which one you do copy. We need this one. This is the one we need. So copy, paste, and override it with this one here. A comment. That's right, add frame. And the frame name will be Salt Typography. Like so. Then all you need to do in here is change this transform to do the salt, like so. And that's all you need to do. So now it says salt. We have salt in the proper correct position. As you can see, it's a little too high. It's because of these being too high. It's just a case of lowering it down. Like so. There you go. So now we have that. If you want, you can correct the ambient occlusion here. You can see it's too dark, so I'll be tempted to lower that down. And they are, and that looks more better now. It looks more realistic as gold, and you can read it now. It's more clearer. So now when I press false, it turns to pepper. When I click true, it turns to salt. I can then expose this new pepper. So now when we go into the actual main graph, it's exposed as a boolean. So you can click true to be default, false to be default, and it changes it. Simple as that. And all you need to do is re-export it as the SBSAR file. I think that's what you call it. Let me publish it. SBSAR file, and it would expose it. So now, then you can re-import it back into Unreal, and then a new graph will be added here with a new label and identifier, and you have true and false. It'll be a tick box. So now then you can call that out. So when you press S, for example, or P for pepper, it will change it, switch it over. So like again, as I stressed before, I'm not a technical artist. I'm a 3D artist. I build 3D assets. So this is just an extension to my knowledge. So I'm not perfect, you know, and I'm always looking to improve. So if you find a way to improve my work, just email me and let me know. So this will wrap up this asset, and I want to say thank you for watching my tutorial series so far. Tomorrow we'll be working on building the actual building the 3D food mixer asset, which then could then show you more maps like emissive and alpha channels. We'll be again using Substance Designer, and I also will use Photoshop to do some of the texturing as well. And I'll still completely using Substance Designer. I will also show you how you can adopt the same theory in Photoshop as you do in Substance Designer. Basically, because all this is the histogram laid out as a graph form of a Photoshop. So the same thing is the same. It's the same thing. It's just the histogram here that makes the Photoshop is laid out in the graph, and you actually make the histogram, if that makes sense. It's more procedural, so, and it's the new revolution. Again, I want to say thank you for watching, and join me tomorrow. Thank you for watching.